Dopamine stimulates sympathetic arousal, which means you can increase your alertness and desire to pursue your goals outside of yourself, and when applied strategically, it can help you get unstuck. Procrastination isn't a sign that you're lazy. It's a warning sign that your body and brain are running on empty. It's a sign that your inbuilt safety switch has triggered. The question is, what's triggering it? The first lesson I learned about beating procrastination was when I was 23 years old and writing my first book. I'd never written a 70,000 word book before, and I had a deadline of 90 days with over 500 guests booked to attend an in-person book launch. Just a little bit of pressure. To get my head in the right place, I had to take a few key steps like managing dopamine effectively and boosting systolic blood pressure to help dial in my focus. But first, I had to make one of the most important shifts in my thinking that anyone can make, and that was to change the way I looked at procrastination entirely. Instead of seeing it as a sign of mental weakness, I chose to see it as a warning sign that things were off. Seeing it as a sign of weakness only ever sparks negative thoughts. You're a failure. You're not good enough. They'll think you're a loser. If I engaged in that mental dialogue, there was no way back. So I stopped and took a step back and asked, what do I get out of procrastinating? It meant I would avoid becoming overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, exhausted, and avoid public humiliation. But looking closer at these answers, I noticed I could put them into two separate buckets, one biology and two psychology, which I discuss in length in my book Unstoppable. You see, my brain was already exhausted from working long hours. It was at maximum capacity. As a result, it had turned on my inbuilt safety switch to prevent me from draining my physical and mental resources further, otherwise known as self-preservation mode, which is where your primal mind prioritizes your vital bodily functions over any goal that you may have, because the goal requires more energy than what you have to give. The second I saw procrastination as a safety mechanism instead of a weakness was when everything changed. Think of it like this. You drive up to a T-junction. To achieve your goals, you need to turn right. But to make that journey, your body and brain require fuel. When you become overwhelmed and exhausted, your body forces you to turn left to rest and recover, much like the power saving mode on your phone. When we use willpower to push through, we find ourselves stuck at this T-junction in a tug-of-war with ourselves. We're wanting to turn right while being pulled left. As a result, we don't just end up stuck, we inadvertently force our primal brain to take over control of the situation, which forces us to rest and recover whether we like it or not. To beat procrastination, get the book done on time, I had to ensure that I had all of the energy I needed and more. I knew if my biological needs were met, the psychological reasons that stopped me in my tracks would start to slip away, because there wouldn't be any reason for many of them to exist, like I'm too tired, I can't focus, I'm overworked. At the time, and without realizing it, I started working on the 9 mechanisms of superhuman focus, one of which was to ensure my gut health was optimized for a very important reason. Approximately 50% of your dopamine is produced in your gastrointestinal tract. Dopamine impacts how you feel, if you're motivated, and if you're in a good mood or not. Put simply, it's in charge of 3 core factors: motivation, drive, and cravings. It's also involved in perception of time, which is important for sustained effort over long periods of time. Dopamine stimulates sympathetic arousal, which means you can increase your alertness and desire to pursue your goals outside of yourself, and when applied strategically, it can help you get unstuck. And if you remember anything, remember this: after you experience something that you desire as exciting and rewarding to you, your dopamine baseline drops. For example, if you've ever felt driven or excited to do something like start a new business, make more money, speak in public, or tackle a big project, and you don't want to make a mistake, this means you're in a high dopamine state. But if you felt tired, unmotivated, and lack drive, you're in a low dopamine state, otherwise known as dopamine depletion. And because half of your dopamine is produced in your gut, it's a key step towards increasing your desire, drive, and motivation to succeed. In my book Unstoppable, I speak about the trillions of gut microbes that live in your gut directly and how they affect the way your brain works, how you think, and how you feel. We require microbial diversity to ensure that we have the right environment to produce key neurotransmitters like dopamine. A critical error many procrastinators make is they will acknowledge they have gut health issues, but they fail to make the connection between their mental health and a lack of productivity. With a deadline looming, I dialed in my focus on exercise, diet, and focused on foods that increased microbial diversity and rid my diet of anything that could cause neuroinflammation, a common cause of brain fog which also triggers self-preservation mode. To me, I knew that poor nutrition, gut health was a major trigger of not being able to focus, but many don't know what their triggers are, which is why I put a link to a free Find Your Focus quiz below to help you uncover your triggers in 60 seconds or less. So now that my brain had everything it needed, it was time to address the psychological blocks. I had to get my brain salivating at the thought of a big dopamine hit, and I'd stack this with an increase in systolic blood pressure. You must stack habits on top of one another. Trying to beat procrastination, getting focused with only one approach is like having a pen with no ink, a car with no fuel, or a brain without the right biochemistry. And here's where you need to listen closely. There's a biological reason that goal setting works. A 2017 study found that goal setting gives a boost to your systolic blood pressure, which makes you hastily act on it. When the goal is challenging, yet achievable, systolic blood pressure gets an enhanced spike that increases your desire to act and achieve. So I got clear on my goals, wrote them down and mapped them out. The next step was to visualize them to increase it further. And because dopamine is released when your brain expects a reward, I had to make that reward compelling. That's when I developed my FRF method, which stands for fast forward, rewind, fast forward. It's the same technique that athletes use to prepare for a race. You sit down, get a goal clear in mind, then think about any psychological blocks that could prevent you from achieving it. Then you play a mind movie of your future self overcoming these challenges, beating procrastination, getting focused, becoming driven, to then finally achieving it and seeing what happens in the days, weeks, and months after you've succeeded. You rewind it, fast forward, and rewind, with a few other essential steps that you need to take in the process. This tricks your mind into thinking you've been there and done it before, which means you have nothing to fear and no reason to procrastinate. You also build up anticipation of a big dopamine reward, which means you're able to sustain focus and drive for longer periods of time. And this next part is vital. Because you're picturing yourself in a future event, you create tension between your future self and your current self, which pulls you towards taking action like a powerful magnet. And when you stack this into your daily routine over time, it doesn't matter if you're a little bit tired, you've trained your brain to act. In fact, the FRF method has been so effective for myself and for my clients, I've even got downloadable programs to step you through. And the great thing is, it takes 10 minutes a day to train your brain. The question is, do these mechanisms of superhuman focus beat procrastination? Well, I ended up launching my first book on schedule, and I've continued this practice to go on to write a total of 6 books. These mechanisms didn't just help me beat procrastination, they helped me to overcome my fears.